Hello everyone, I am the Man at Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander from the Duskborn Precons, the Lord of Pain. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel and no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You could also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. The Lord of Pain is a 5/5 human assassin with menace for 3 generic, 1 black and 1 red. Whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, you choose another player. The Lord of Pain then deals damage to that player equal to the spell's mana value. Obviously, you're never choosing yourself to receive damage. You can even accumulate the pain on a single opponent by having each trigger target them. Unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to do that for their own first spell. It's important to note that with the way this trigger is worded, you could potentially get multiple triggers per turn. For example, if it's your turn and an opponent casts something in it, you could have a different player take damage. So if 4 different players cast a spell during a single turn, you would have 4 different triggers. So that's something super important to keep in mind. This is why Vedalken Orrery is in the deck. So long as you cast a spell each turn, you will trigger your own commander, regardless of what your opponents do. Speaking of what your opponents do, as a bonus, they can't gain life while we control our commander. It's all about the pain for this psycho. Now, you wouldn't be able to call yourself the Lord of Pain if you didn't include a lot of pain-dealing effects in the deck. To that end, the deck aims to not only win by 1,000 cuts, but turning those cuts into gaping wounds. The deck's running Balduvian Trading Post, Desert, Jagged Barrens, Keldon Megaliths, Mount Doom, Shivan Gorge, Stensia Bloodhall, Sun-Scorched Desert, and Valakut the Molten Pinnacle as sources of pain that don't take up slots in the deck since they're lands that tap for mana. Some of these deal damage via triggers while others require activating to deal that damage. The ones that ping opponents are especially good when we've run out of steam and are hellbent but still have effects that synergize with dealing damage. Valakut might seem like an odd include in a multicolored deck like this one, but the deck is running 8 basic mountains along with 6 dual-typed lands that can also tap for black. It might seem like this would be overkill in terms of lopsidedness in the lack of basic swamps, but the deck is running all 7 fetch lands, all of which can get us one of the dual-typed lands. So we essentially have 13 cards in the deck that can get us a swamp in play. Not only that, but Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth is included so that we can really ensure we're never without black mana. All of this just so Valakut could deal damage for free. It might seem like a lot of hoops to jump through, but none of these cards take up slots. So the floor is just lands that tap for our colors, but the ceiling is dealing a ton of damage. The deck is still running Haunted Bridge, Luxury Suite, and Command Tower, so don't worry about that lopsidedness in colors. Unless you only draw into the only 8 mountains, you should be fine. Keep in mind that the first mulligan is free in Commander though. Back to the pain, Blazing Sunsteel, Sulfuric Vortex, Court of Embereth, Giggling Skitter Spike, Mogus God of Slaughter, Pestilence, Pyrohemia, Brash Taunter, Court of Ire, and Stuffy Doll are some more ways of dealing pain to opponents via triggers or activations. These are pretty self-explanatory, but I want to give extra attention to the indestructible creatures. These do some serious work when attacking or defending, especially since the deck has some attack triggers which we'll see soon. But being able to also make opponents hesitant when attacking or blocking provides the table with even more mind games, which the Lord of Pain definitely loves. Chandra Awakened Inferno also contributes to the pain, but I want to bring special attention to her emblems. When she makes them, she gives them directly to an opponent, so you don't control them nor never did. Any effect that cares about damage from sources you control will not interact with these emblems. However, effects that care about any damage dealt to opponents or life opponents lose will interact with them. It's important to keep that in mind when paying attention to your triggers. Descent into Avernus is possibly the best of these though. While this hits everyone equally, it only does so in its base form. But when compared with the multitude of damage increasing and multiplying effects in the deck, your opponent should die well before you do. Sure, everyone also gets treasures, but you're able to use them better to cast your spells during your turn. Giving opponents treasures is never a good thing, but they should be dying well before they're able to use them. Barb Servitor, Nightshade Harvester, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Painful Quandary, and Polluted Bonds are included to further the pain. However, these are literally making opponents lose life. When dealing pain and losing life have the same result, they are not the same. Dealing damage induces life loss, but losing life isn't the same as receiving damage. In any case, they serve to continue dwindling our opponent's life. Just to further specify, Wound Reflection and Archfiend of Despair interact with not just these effects just shown, but the previous ones as well. Whether an opponent's life decreased by damage or literally losing life, these cards will keep track of that and make them lose that much life at the end of the turn. On the other hand, the Roller Coaster Ride, Sawhorn Nemesis, Sulfur Mayhem Dominus, Gratuitous Violence, Obosh the Prey Piercer, Fiendish Duo, Goblin Goliath, and Angrath's Marauders only interact with damage. Literal damage. And even then, some of these are situational. Are your permanents the source of damage? Is the damage from an odd mana value source, etc.? However, they're still amazing because they all interact with our commander, so we're always assured some synergy there. Since there's so many to choose from, more often than not you're going to have multiples of these in play, so it's simply a matter of paying attention to what affects what, and maybe keeping a calculator handy. It gets even more insane with cards like Fiery Emancipation and City on Fire, since they triple the amount of damage dealt. These, along with the previously mentioned damage doublers, aren't up to the affected player's discretion since multiplication is commutative. That means that when they choose the order of replacement effects, there's no best and worst way, it's all bad for them. However, the following cards, Artist Talent, Torbran Thane of Redfell, Jaya Venerated Fire Mage, and the Torture Pit half of this room, do have that caveat. Notice that these don't multiply the damage dealt, they simply increase the damage dealt. A math-savvy opponent will know that it's beneficial for them to first multiply the damage received and then add the rest of it. Because if they add it first, the total amount dealt after multiplication will be higher. Keep in mind that you do not choose how these effects stack or replace, the affected player does. That being said, they're still amazing here. Thanks to these damage increasers and multipliers, Invasion of Karsus has the potential of being a one-sided board wipe. Since it hits all creatures, it'll also hit Stuffy Doll, Brash Tonder, and the creature equipped by Blazing Sunsteel, dealing even more damage to opponents. That damage would also be multiplied. That being said, the front half of this battle is an amazing ETB trigger. However, when it transforms into Refraction Elemental, it's yet another pain effect in the deck. Each time we cast a spell, it hits all opponents, hopefully for more than 2 damage thanks to our damage intensifying effects. If that weren't enough, its word cost is 2 life, so anyone wanting to target it will lose damage to do so, putting them in a lose-lose situation. Such an amazing card here. The deck's fairly straightforward, however, that means also potentially running out of steam fairly quickly. Fortunately, we have Call of the Ring, Black Market Connections, and Phyrexian Arena to draw cards during our upkeep. Yes, they cost life to draw, but they're black, which is how it draws cards. Same with Necropotence. However, these are essential at drawing as much as we can per turn. In order to counteract this life loss, Exquisite Blood is included. With the amount of damage and life loss effects in the deck, this draws us a ton of cards when left unchecked. You could include Sanguine Bond if you want to instantaneously win via the classic combo, but I opted out of that win for myself. Gaining a ton of life is also useful since Groupslug decks tend to make you the arch enemy because you're almost always hurting every opponent all the time, so they will eventually tire of that. Having a higher than normal life total is a good buffer against the table's ire. Back to card advantage, Valgavoth Harrower of Souls also draws its cards without giving it life. Not only that, but it has the potential of becoming a huge beater. Best of all, if an opponent wanted to interact with it, they'd have to pay 2 life, making it yet another source of pain for them. Speaking of interaction, Bedevil, Chaos Warp, Guthrie Writes History, and Tybalt's Trickery are some pretty decent spells to get rid of most things, especially the last one. If there's something players least expect, it's a non-blue deck countering their spells. These being instants also matter for casting spells outside of our turn. Remember that key strategy explained in the beginning of the video. Damnation and Blasphemous Act round out the interaction via wiping the board. The deck doesn't have many creatures, so we won't mind wiping the board. Best of all, even if Blasphemous Act costs us just 1 random mana to cast, its mana value is still 9. So if this is the first spell we cast in our turn, the Lord of Pain will deal 9 damage to an opponent of our choice. Hopefully even more if we have our damage multipliers in play. Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boost, Champion's Helm, Darksteel Plate, Mithril Coat, and Shield of Cauldron serve to protect our commander, with the last 3 helping him survive board wipes too. I went heavy on the protective equipment because the commander already costs 5 mana to cast the first time. While the deck can function without it, it might not be possible to recast him multiple times in a turn. Speaking of mana to cast things, the deck's running Wayfarer's Bauble, Navigation Orb, Burnished Heart, and Canoptic Wraith, along with Sword of the Animus, Bitterthorn Nissus Animus, and Sword of Hearth and Home for land-based mana acceleration. The commander having Menace is helpful in equipping these land wrap equipment, but equipping these to any of the indestructible creatures that deal damage whenever they're dealt damage is a Saw movie type of game anyways. Pretty fitting for the flavor of the commander. Lastly, Ancient Tomb, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Filwar Stone, and Talisman of Indulgence are included because the deck is a tad high on the mana curve. This is still beneficial since our commander deals damage based on mana value. So even if we reach a point where we're playing one heavy spell per turn, that's a ton of damage we're hopefully dealing to somebody's face. Casting additional spells in a turn thanks to our mana rocks and extra lands is just a bonus. This brew is just an idea of how to build around the Lord of Pain. This commander definitely loves to play mind games, so it is super flavorful. It either puts your opponents in a tough spot or helps your opponents and you become temporary allies to get rid of the arch enemy. There's definitely a ton of potential, and this is by no means the only nor best way to build it. That being said, if you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Meta Kirby, and happy brewing.